If you're a big fan of vampire stories, then you basically know what to expect before you ever sit down to watch it, because they become so cliche that you can predict all of their tropes. Mars Red throws a lot of people off because it takes a step in the opposite direction, because it's a tragedy that focuses on the weaker nature of vampires, and I don't think we've ever seen this in another anime aside from Shiki. If you know of any, please let me know, because I like vampire stories, and I've been waiting for something that took a darker, more somber and melancholic look into vampirism, and this is definitely what I've been waiting for. However, I've got a lot of mixed opinions about this, and it is a very controversial anime, so I really wanted to set the record straight and talk a little bit about the reception it got as well. So Mars Red, when it first came out, I watched the first episode, and it blew me away, and I couldn't wait until the season ended so I could catch up on it, because I don't really care to watch anime seasonal, weekly. I just prefer to watch it all at once. And Mars Red, on day one, it was like 7.5, 7.8, might have even been closer to an 8 at that point. And much to my surprise, halfway through the season, people were dropping it like crazy. It had gotten down to a 5 point something on my anime list, which really surprised me. I mean, it's not surprising to me that an anime can fall flat on its face, but from the contents of episode 1, which was really dramatic and tragic, I was just surprised that something of that nature could be capable of getting a 5. So I wonder what was the problem. After the season ended, I watched the anime. After finishing it, I read people's reviews, and I tried to get people's opinions by going different places and asking people. And the reasons why people were saying they didn't like Mars Red: it felt like a stage play. The action wasn't animated that well. The mystery elements were predictable. The story itself was just kind of bland. They were saying that there were plot holes and that certain things were popping up out of nowhere. This may come as a surprise to you, but I would consider most of those complaints to be accurate observations. But the reason why I still consider Mars Red to be a good anime is because the nature of their complaints are minuscule in comparison to what Mars Red is focusing on. They're basically making complaints about supplementary aspects of a story, like the action is not the main point of Mars Red, neither is the mystery, but they are valid complaints nonetheless. Mars Red, for those who complain about how it feels like a stage play, it is a stage play adaptation, so I'm not sure what people are expecting out of that. What is a stage play? I don't watch any, to be honest with you, but it's a stage, and people depict characters. They act out these characters, and the main point is them, their ability to act out the character and the lines in between each other. That, to my impression, is a stage play. Mars Red, even before I knew it was a stage play adaptation, that was the main focal point in my opinion. It's all about these characters learning their backstories, about them letting down their guard and letting out their secrets, their histories, their fears, the things that just make them depressed, and the things that they miss from their human life. This show is not afraid to kill off characters. There's a lot of tragic things that happen to these characters in the story, and I really appreciated that. And I think the people who rated this so poorly because the supplementary aspects were not well executed are really missing the forest for the trees. Mars Red is set in 1920s Tokyo during a vampire outbreak, and there's this actress in theater. There's a lot of characters here who are there's a couple characters here who are interested in theater. There's this actress, and she has an incident where she becomes a vampire. So the military, they lock her up, and they call in Lieutenant Colonel Maida, who is a specialist on vampires. He's been to war against vampires in the past, so he's got a lot of experience with this. And he takes his job very seriously. This is one thing I like about his character, is that he kind of reminds me of Hajime Saito from Rurouni Kenshin, because he's got this never-ending pledge to his duty, and he's such a stoic character, and there seems to be nothing that faces him. But every now and then, you'll see with his actions that there's a crack in his wall, in his shield, and you can see that he actually has been affected by some of the events, such as the events that happened in episode 1. But episode 1, there's that woman, and there are three sentences in the entire episode which give us the details we need in order to piece together the understanding that she is somehow connected to him. And at the end of the episode, after he is given the task to interrogate and subjugate her, we realize how when they meet in the middle of town, when there's this intimate moment between the two of them, we realize there are 3 sentences throughout the entire first episode that kind of give us breadcrumbs in order to understand that this woman has a very special connection to him, and she just burns, poof, right there in the sunlight, right in front of him, leaving this really kind of like poetic sort of mark on the ground that has a lot of significance later on, especially with the end of the story, that is just really just gripping to you right there. And if that little circle on the ground seems weird to you, it has meaning later on, and it's really kind of symbolic for something that I think is great. But this doesn't seem to impact Maida at all, but there are moments later on in the story where his mask just cracks and it just leaks out how much this actually impacted him. And the exposition method and the characterization method is very similar throughout the entire series, where they give you all of these little breadcrumbs, not just for him, but maybe the 6 or 7 other main characters. We get a lot of different breadcrumbs. Sometimes they're not as subtle, and they just come out and just directly tell you what their backstory is, or they directly give you information about their personality. But for the most part, your ability to enjoy Mars Red is probably going to rely on your ability to pick up all of these little bits of information, not just for the characters, but for the story as well. And that's kind of where I come into some of my problems with the anime, is because they give you a lot of exposition for the plot and just the general story through these little breadcrumbs that you get. And it wasn't until my second time around that I really had a great appreciation for Mars Red, but I just don't see that the story is that entertaining to warrant a normal person going through and watching a second time around. If I wasn't reviewing the anime, I would have probably given it a 6.5 and never have rewatched it. But after having rewatched it and picked up on these clues, the thing is, my experience is not going to be like yours. You might be able to pick up on more details than I do your first time around, so I wanted to get that little bit of information. And I saw some reviews. People were complaining about the plot holes and things just happening out of nowhere in the ending. And in my opinion, this was pretty easy to spot. Maybe that person didn't spot the clues that I spotted, but the information required to fill in some of those plot holes that person was talking about was given in episode 1 and in various other episodes. So they sprinkle on and pepper on this little bit of exposition there that you're supposed to piece together the bigger picture, and this works beautifully for characterization because you are given you're given the appropriate information to make the scene more emotionally impactful when it is necessary for characterization, and that it works well for something that comes from a stage play. If we're talking about the story itself here, I just don't think the nature of the story is as interesting or exciting enough to warrant that level of exposition. The second half of the anime goes into corruption and the military bureaucracy and the problems there with that, and I kind of saw some of that coming, to be honest with you, and I just don't think it is that interesting, especially for a story that's primarily about the characters and their drama in their lives. But at the same time, I can kind of see it as these characters are just powerless in the greater waves of humanity, because even though most of them are vampires, not all of them, they're still insignificant in the grand scheme of things, and they're just floating about being affected by the impact of what everyone else's decisions are. So when you get a lot of corruption in the military and certain things happen in the end of the series, I guess that aids to the tragic nature of the story because there's nothing they could have done to affect it. So it really is a complicated web of things that they could possibly tweak, but also understanding that they were there for a reason. But still, going back to the characters, like I said, were my favorite thing about the series there. And I wanted to talk a bit more about that. I really appreciated how some of these characters, like there was my favorite moment of the entire series was when there was this one character who was mourning the loss of his wife because he could not interact with her anymore. Because he had become a vampire, he had lost all contact with her because he could not interact with her. She believed that he was dead. And for him to get some closure, he used vampire powers to appear in front of her during a candle ceremony where it's supposed to be mourning the dead. And he did this, and it was such like an emotional scene. It was a very powerful scene for the series, and it not only did it bring closure, but it also brought much inspiration because they were both mourning each other, and this moment inspired them to continue living their lives in hopes of seeing each other maybe in the future, even if it's under the false interpretation that he's a ghost. So I felt like that was a really emotional, impacting moment right there. and it just stuck with me throughout the rest of the series. There's also characters who they've been vampires for such a long time that they fell victim to the inevitable complacency that you're going to experience as a vampire, because you can really be curious about the discoveries of humanity. Like, for example, where will science be in 1,000 years? As a vampire, you will know this. Where are our ancient discoveries going to be in 1,000 years, like our archaeology and stuff like that? Where's that going to be? You will know because you are a vampire. But at the same time, while you're curious and while you may love humans, you can't interact with this humanity, because they're going to see you as a monster, basically, and they're eventually going to hunt you, so it's not going to end out for you. So it's basically this ironic experience of loving what you're seeing but not be able to interact with it. I think Mars Red is the prime example of the type of anime I talked about in my recent video about getting over anime burnout. If you are looking for something, if you are into theater, performing arts, or anything, if you are into vampire stories, if you're into character-driven dramas or tragedies, then Mars Red is definitely going to be something you might want to check out if you've seen anything that is interesting or curious about this video that you want to check it out. Then I think you would actually really enjoy Mars Red, but it does have its flaws. For that reason, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's going to be great for certain people, as evident when you look at the Mal reviews now. Some people are giving it 10 out of 10s. I disagree with that, but I can understand. As a reviewer, I disagree with that, but I can really appreciate when somebody can look at an anime that is a 6 or something out of Mal and just have a 10 out of 10 experience with it. And I think Mars Red is definitely that type of anime for somebody. Whether that's you or not, that's up for you to decide. And even if it's something that only turns out to be an 8 out of 10 or something, I still think Mars Red is a pretty good experience for you, despite some of its flaws. But if you are not interested in the things that I mentioned as being some of the positives about Mars Red, and you're looking for something that's more action-oriented and whatnot, then I don't think this will be the right anime for you. So getting into some of my recommendations, I've got 3 recommendations. One would be for Shiki. I've already mentioned Shiki, but Shiki is this really tragic story that I think if you've never seen Shiki and you watch Mars Red and you like it, you will love Shiki, because I consider it to be just executed and written way better than Mars Red. But it's about this small little village where vampires are just coming in there, and it starts off from the perspective of the villagers there, the people in the town, and they gradually become vampires. So there's people on one side who are humans and people on one side who are vampires, and it's just this tragic tale of people who were once in this tight-knit community going to war with each other and killing each other brutally, and it's really, really is sad. The next thing I'd like to recommend would be Lament of the Lamb, and this is actually a manga. Do not watch the anime. We do not talk about the anime here. I reviewed it if you're interested, but that would be I think it's like a 7 or 8 volume long manga that is about vampires, and it's kind of got this melancholic tone to it, but at the same time there's also vibes of a taboo romance there as well. So that might be right up your alley too if you're interested in stories of that nature. I actually enjoyed it too. I like the art style. It's from the same mangaka as Sing Yesterday for me, which I talked about recently. And the third anime the third story that I would like to recommend would be Showagen Rogu Rakugo Shinju, because that is another anime that focuses on the performing arts. So this is an anime that focuses on an ancient form of Japanese storytelling called Rakugo, where they just sit on stage and they tell stories and they act out multiple different characters. The story of this anime spans numerous decades, and it starts off when people are young teenagers and it goes all the way until they're really old, and it shows different parts of like family that they have, and it really does go in depth. There's a ton of character development here. There's some great drama. There's some good romance there. There's just so many different elements which bring this together, and I think I gave it a 9, but I recommend you checking out my review for that. So if you've seen Mars Red, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This video is different from my normal videos where I'm just heavily scripted and really straightforward with everything. I just wanted to go unscripted because as I was trying to write the script for this, I just felt like I didn't really have that much to say, and it's probably better if I just get up and talk off the top of my head, and I felt like I got more said this way than I would have if I had wrote the script, just looking at what I had written. So let me know what you think about this style of video. Maybe I'll do more. Maybe you like these better. I don't know. But basically, I also have a Patreon if you guys don't know. If you want to support the channel, we do anime watch-alongs, we do anime chats, we have a Discord call once every other week. It's a Discord group especially for Patreon supporters. So if you'd like to support the channel, I really appreciate it because YouTube's not sharing my videos like I'd like. But anyways, I'll see you guys next week. I'm working on a lot of different anime right now. I'm currently enjoying the Moriarty anime. I don't know anything about Sherlock, but the Moriarty anime is really giving me some good feelings right now. I'm only maybe 4 episodes in, and I'm looking forward to finishing that. So anyways, I'll see you next week with another anime review, though I'm not sure as of what, but I'll see you guys then. Have an awesome week, everybody, and thank you for watching.